So the term queer, I think, is lots of things. I think for me, I've always thought of it as kind of like almost like an umbrella term that kind of covers lots of different things. People have different sexualities, sexual preferences, identities, all of that stuff. I think generally you could probably blanket kind of term it as queer. I actually don't hear the term used a lot in kind of just day to day. Like, I actually don't remember the last time somebody used it in a sentence, although you often read it and you kind of, it's used as part of like the LGBTQ kind of thing. But for me, I think it's quite amazing that it's actually been reclaimed, because I think it used to be quite a negative word. It's quite powerful. It's a very powerful word. And I guess because the origins are sort of, the kind of meaning is sort of, queer means kind of odd or different. It makes it quite special, almost quite magical way to describe someone. I actually did two pieces. I did one that said witch and I did one that said queer, and for me both those words are quite loaded, they're quite powerful, and I think usually words like that are used when people are scared of something or someone. So you might call a woman who's powerful a witch, but I think those words are actually to be reclaimed and used positively, and I think there's something quite I guess there's kind of like a power to those words, to own those words, to kind of proclaim that you are those things. I think it's quite a positive thing. It's a very positive thing, actually. I mean, when you think about it, actually, so many countries in the world, it's still illegal to be, well, queer, I suppose, gay, bisexual, whatever. And I think, much as we'd like to live in a kind of perfect world where everybody's equal, where everybody should be equal, we don't. And so I think, there's still, even in the West, even in, first world countries, there's so much bullying and homophobia and violence towards people who might be perceived as being different in some way. I think it's absolutely essential for there to be safe spaces, I think, for pretty much most minorities, not just kind of queer minorities. I think it's the fact that if something is your space, you kind of make it safe for you, and you make it your home, and you make it kind of comfortable for you. And I think it's as much about the people around you as it is about kind of the physical space itself. You have to feel comfortable. Everybody's welcome here. It's just kind of a no-brainer, really. I don't know if I would say it's one thing. I think all the stuff around you, usually you end up curating, don't you? Like, you curate your space, you curate your home, and you curate where you feel comfortable. So I think it's always a collection of things. So for me, for example, I like having books around me, and I like having, I just like having stuff. Like, I'm not someone who's going to have just white walls, and like, I've got to have like my things around me, and I think that's what kind of makes it comfortable for me. All kinds of books, really. Fashion books, art books. I recently started collecting film, kind of Indian film magazines from the 70s and 80s.
Amazing.
Because that was a thing. And I find them really interesting because it kind of takes me back to my childhood a little bit. I would say books, for some reason, make me feel they're very comforting things to have. There's the thing of, do you make a statement through your work? But I think that regardless of whether you choose to do that or not, because I'm not saying essential that everybody goes off and makes a statement, but I think that just on a base level, I think it's everyone's responsibility to work in a responsible fashion. So, whether that means, you know, being responsible towards the environment, making choices that are the least damaging to the environment. For example, we don't have to use fur. We can make choices to reduce our footprint. But other than that, kind of making choices like, making sure that you manufacture in places that, pay a good wage, don't use slave labor, don't work in sweatshops, make sure that people who are making your product work in good conditions, are paid properly, are working decent hours, things like that. I mean, that's just stuff that everybody can kind of do just to make sure that what you're doing is being done in a responsible fashion, just towards kind of society and the environment. And then, of course, apart from that, of course, you can use fashion to send a message. You can do lots of things about that. You can also, hire people responsibly so that, you're inclusive when you, for example, when you cast models or, when you hire people. I think those are just things that everybody can kind of take on board and use so that what you make is made kind of in a certain way, which is responsible. I think it's generally kind of a message that I kind of tell myself quite a lot, especially now that because I feel that we're actually living through a very strange time. This is a very, very strange time. It's a very dark time as well. And I think it's quite easy to get tired of it and to kind of feel this kind of malaise of this kind of, there's nothing we can do. But of course, there's always stuff that we can do. So I think actually now more than ever, it's a message that for me means quite a lot. I think it's and it's not literally glitter, of course. It's a message of, being positive and staying strong and kind of not giving up and, just waking up every day and just thinking, what can I do today to kind of make things a little bit better? Like, even if, it doesn't have to be the biggest thing, but I think if everybody kind of just thinks that every little small thing they do can make a change, then you can affect change. I mean, the feedback that I usually get is that people feel very happy when they wear my clothes, which is a really big compliment, I think. And for me, I think if you can spread happiness, I mean, that's something quite amazing. So I think that's kind of usually what I like to think that my clothes give to people. Well, I mean, that was kind of, I think, just after the whole kind of Trump had just been elected president. And I was kind of so upset about that in a way, because I feel that that's kind of really affected everyone, not just in America, but actually just all over the globe. I mean, that's going to have, so many repercussions. I mean, so many things have been set back. Like, it's going to take years and years and years to repair the damage that's been caused by that. So for me, that show was kind of like a way to kind of express solidarity with certain things and taking a stand against certain things. But I think more than anything, it was again like just a very positive message, and just it was this like, we have to fight, we have to stay strong, we have to have courage. And actually, it was quite funny how it had these parallels with kind of The Wizard of Oz, and how Dorothy goes off in search of the wizard, and of course the wizard is a complete fake. There were loads of kind of metaphors with kind of all the characters in that film, and actually the stuff that was happening then and is still kind of happening now. So I felt like it was just it was kind of a interesting time to do that. It was appropriate for the time. I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff that's happening now which is actually very positive. With, you know, and I think that people have really woken up and gone, you know, what is going on? We all have to kind of do stuff, and I think there's a lot of stuff that's happening which is good. Like there's a lot more, you know, conversation about inclusivity and about equality and about fundamental rights of everyone, and I think all that stuff is really good, and I just think it'd be really good to kind of keep that going and keep that movement alive, and for it not just to be this flash in the pan and then it's gone, you know. I think that just in terms of, you know, gay rights, women's rights, all that stuff, I mean, that's happening now. I think it's really important to kind of sustain that and keep that moving and grow it and kind of build on that and raise more awareness and get more people involved, and, you know, I think all that stuff is really important.